Hello and welcome to Andy's FPL Apprentice. We've got a team selection video ahead of Gameweek 16 for you today. Obviously it's the last team selection before the World Cup. So as well as taking you through how we did for Gameweek 15, we're also going to be looking at the best 1 week punts, as obviously we get unlimited transfers after this week. If you enjoyed the video, then please consider subscribing to the channel. It's massively appreciated when you guys do that. And also give the video a like. It doesn't cost you anything, and like I say, it is hugely appreciated. I'm joined as always by the only person who's good at FPL on this channel. It's Will.
Hiya, Chief.
You all right?
Yeah, I mean, I've got to say this week is not one to brag about from my perspective, so I'm not going to be Billy Pigman today.
No, well, mine was an oddity. So it ended up with 62 points, which is not too bad. It was a slight green arrow. Basically, when the game week kicked off, I was at work and I was like, I'm not following this. I'm so annoyed because I waited until I was like, it was 1:30 the deadline. And I was like, well, I usually go on my lunch about 12:30, 1 o'clock at work. I was like, I'll leave the change until my lunch, which I did in case there was a bit of an early team news. And I remember saying on the video to you that I didn't think it was worth taking a hit. But when it seemed like a possibility that Haaland wasn't going to start, I was thinking, well, if Haaland and Foden don't start, it probably is worth a hit to me just for captaincy. Mm-hmm. And obviously I did get a bit of early team news. I made my change. I brought in Wilson and Kev, because I was planning on captaining De Bruyne. Like, I was thinking, well, he's going to play 90 minutes. It's Fulham, like, good guy. Like, it's worth the -4 for that.
Yeah.
And then the site crashed, and for 10 minutes, I was just trying to change my team.
Yeah. Well, just another person that we know in our league was saying the same thing. Fortunately, I'd sort of settled on my changes after we recorded the last podcast, so I backed away from the last minute changes. But yeah, I'd heard there was a lot of trouble with that.
But then it didn't turn out too badly, because like it did lose me points, obviously, because De Bruyne did outscore Haaland, but only by a couple of points in the end. And also, I was going to bench Ben White and play Gay, and that pulled me 5 points on that move. Mm-hmm. So, kind of overall, it's probably much of a muchness for I would have ended up much the same.
Some bad, some good.
Yeah, so overall, Ben White getting a clean sheet was just a Brucey bonus. Trippier, 12 points, superb. Pope conceding in the last minute is frustrating. I think that's the second time he's done that in about 5 game weeks. And pretty much all the rest have been clean sheets, so I can't complain too much. Cancelo getting sent off, he's so highly owned, I don't think it's
No, it's just universal.
Yeah, it's disappointing, but so many people have him, it doesn't make a huge difference. Star of the show is Zaha for me. He's so frustrating. Like, when he's good, he's great, and then he'll have 3 game weeks and do nothing.
Yeah.
I'm glad I kept him. Like, I never really considered getting rid of him. I was frustrated, but I felt like I had bigger problems, so he was always likely to stay. But yeah, 12-pointer, goal and assist, superb. Andreas coming off the bench because Mitrovic didn't start. Swings and roundabouts, because if Mitrovic had been on the pitch, he would have taken that penalty. So
yeah.
And Wilson, obviously that didn't really work out for me. I heard he was likely to start and thought he was fine, but obviously he only did, was it like 50 minutes, and he sort of went off. There's no sort of guarantee that he's going to play next week, but it's only illness, so I think it just sounded like he was ill pre-match, he was past fit, and then he felt ill during the game, and they decided not to risk it. Fair enough, but sort of hope he'll start. So yeah, 62 points all out. Weird week, not too bad in the end.
Well, I did worse. I finished just a point above average on 54 points. Once again, frustratingly made the wrong keeper choice. Ward was on the bench with 6 and Sanchez on with a simple 2. Of course, I also had Cancelo, so a -2 there. I did make the decision to drop Ben White to the bench, but I brought Anderson in, who also just got 2. So disappointing. The fact that I have sort of any points at all, I think, is in credit to 4 players in my team, one of which is Trippier with 12 points. What a hero. Newcastle just seem to do it for me week in, week out. Following that same vein, Almiron again with 8 points. And then Salah, finally. Finally, Salah had a great game, 15 points in the middle of the park. But poor Philly, 1 point. Foden just keeps coming off the bench. Having said that, he didn't play in the cup match against Chelsea. So I could see him start in the next match. Particularly Grealish played, didn't he, against Chelsea. So I think that might be ripe for Foden to get back on from a starting position. Basic 3 from Martinelli. I kept my captain on Haaland as we discussed. So a decent 10 points there. 2 for Jesus, 1 for Wilson. So yeah, 4 players really shoring up the rest of my team there.
Yeah, I was just looking, like Salah's up to, he's the 3rd highest scoring midfielder. It's just expectation, and it was Salah.
I think so. Yeah, every week he does nothing. It seems like a disaster.
Yeah, he's pitched in well. I say, like, I'm not going to get into this because plenty of time to think about it. But I think I wouldn't be surprised at all if Salah is in my team after the World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
I'm worried about not owning him again this week against Southampton. Like, it's such a good fixture, but yeah, I mean, you're unlucky there. You've got a lot of points sitting on your bench. Ward, it's not that long ago I said to you, like, there's no way I'd pick Ward. It's not even a competition. It's why I went for Iverson sat on my bench. And he's been so good. I think he's had like 3 clean sheets in the last 5 or something like that. Like,
just think Leicester on the whole have really shored up their defence.
They have, but like, he was poor. It wasn't that the defence was
yeah, that's true.
just poor. Like, he, after about 10 games, his like expected goals versus the amount of goals that he conceded were like doubled. Like, he was conceded, for every goal he should have conceded, he was conceding 2. And he's just completely turned that around. He's been solid. Like you say, Leicester have massively improved. But so, yeah, I feel like I probably should have Danny Ward as my second keeper. Well, it would have cost me 0.1 million at the time. At the moment, I've got like $1.5 million sat not being used. But, you know, such is life. It's definitely an interesting week, I think, for transfers. I've not decided what I'm going to do, but I've got some ideas. You've obviously got 2 transfers, and I think that really opens up your options. Like I say, so I've got 2 players that are yellow flagged, which is Wilson and Mitrovic. Now, as I understand it, Mitrovic has been sort of nursing this ankle injury for a few weeks. I don't know if something just flared, or it doesn't sound like majorly bad, but I don't know. Yeah, I can kind of see, obviously, going to the World Cup with Serbia, I can't imagine he'll want to risk it. And I don't think the club would probably put their biggest asset, like, really highly risk him. If you needed to give him injections to get through the match, well, it's not worth that, aggravating something. So, and Wilson, it is supposedly just illness, and you know, he's been ill for like 10 days now. Like, surely he's got to be improved. So I think the most likely transfer that I'm going to do is probably Mitrovic out. Looking through my team, I think, like, actually I've got a bit of I'm probably going to end up benching Gay again, but they're playing Nottingham Forest. It's such a good fixture. I wouldn't mind him coming in. So I wouldn't really be bothered if I didn't make any changes and I had Gay as first sub. And Mitrovic, you know, didn't play and he came in. But I think the likelihood is that I'm going to probably take a punt on a striker. Now, I'm not really sure who, if I'm perfectly honest. I think, like, I have enough money. If I took out Wilson, I could get Darwin Núñez, and I think that's a really nice, like, 1 week punt.
Yeah.
I could go up to, like, Tony would be a good option if he didn't have City. But he does, so
it's not a good week.
So that kind of seems unlikely. I was considering Martial as well, but he started tonight. I've just seen the team news for, like, we're recording this on Thursday night, so that game is literally about to about to kick off.
Yeah, so good chance of rest.
Yeah. So, in all honesty, I'm not totally sure how I'm going to go for. I was considering Firmino as well, but it's a good fixture, but it isn't the Liverpool player that I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So overall, I'm really I'm sitting on the fence here at the moment. Basically, I don't really know who I'm going to go for as a replacement for Mitrovic, and there's a possibility I might just risk it. And like, it's the sort of thing where you could make a nonsense transfer as well. Like I always say, like it's not worth making goalkeeper transfers, but I've got money sat on the bench. Like I could bring in Alisson for Pope for 1 week, because why not?
Yeah.
Like Newcastle playing Chelsea. I've got double Newcastle defence. There's a decent chance I'll concede against Chelsea. Liverpool got Southampton at home. That seems
absolutely
nice.
right.
So it might end up that I'll just do something, that I wouldn't usually make. That I think just as a 1 weeker is well worth it. What are you looking for your 2 transfers?
Well, I guess I'm in a similar position as to say that I don't know who I would bring in to replace most of the players. I've got 3 City players, 3 Arsenal players, and 3 Newcastle players making up the sort of bulk of my team. City have Brentford, Arsenal have Wolves, and Newcastle have Chelsea, probably the toughest of those 3 matches on paper at least. But I mean, the sending off aside, and Phil Foden coming on for 1 point for 3 matches in a row, I've kind of got no reason to be particularly unhappy with this team. So other than taking a bit of a wilder punt, but I've got 2 Palace players on the bench. They're playing Forest. I think my team have a sort of overall good set of fixtures in front of them. So the consideration of saying Wilson to take him out, but I don't really have any good ideas of who to bring in. I mean, Núñez actually is a very good shout, but with Haaland and Jesus already on the pitch, I don't know. I'm not inspired.
I think it depends how risky you want to be. Your options are opened up because of the 2 transfers. I do like the look of Núñez as a 1 week punt. It is really punty though. Like you've got Jesus. You've obviously got double Arsenal attack as I do, and I've got Martinelli and Saka. You've got Martinelli and Jesus. They're playing Wolves, who are have been quite a good defense this year. They just haven't scored any goals. Like that's why they're struggling. And with it being an away fixture as well, you could definitely do I prefer Núñez over Jesus this week? Yeah, I do. It's aggressive. Like Jesus has been in decent form this season, and Núñez has been really patchy and is a much sort of riskier player. And the thing is, it's so easy to just save the funds because you can just bomb your bench if you need to. Like you could just get rid of Eze and get the cheapest possible midfielder in. Like how much is Eze? 5.7. So you can get yourself a 4 million midfielder. That's 1.7 million save. So the money isn't a massive issue for you. You could kind of do the same. Like I don't think either of your keepers have the worst fixtures in the world. Like Villa at home is quite nice for Brighton, but again, you could consider just upgrading for somebody. And like I say, the money doesn't matter because you just make 2 transfers and you just move one of a player that's going to be second or third on your bench down to the cheapest possible option just to save you the funds for that 1 week. So, but I don't have a huge amount of shouts other than Núñez I sort of fancy this week. Like I was looking at Perisic as a 1 week punt because he started up front basically last week, and he's a defender. And
Legend.
Yeah, he did that because they've got so many injuries, and obviously he's been an attacking midfielder all his career up until 2 years ago, where he sort of converted to a wing back. But then Richarlison and Kulusevski both played midweek. Like they're both back for injury.
So is he going to get another?
So I feel like that's a one-off, and that won't happen again. And he's not the worst player in the world at all, a left wing back, like I've owned him this season. But Less confident than I would be if he's playing up front. Kulusevski's not the worst shout, but again, like, is he going to get 90 minutes? Like, he's just back from injury and he played a bit midweek as well. I'm just not convinced, and Spurs have been unconvincing. So yeah, it's tough. Nunes is probably top of my watch list, and I can't get him in for me without getting rid of. I have exactly the right money actually to do Wilson to Nunes, so I could do that. And they have a better fixture than Newcastle do.
Yeah,
so, but I think
fair.
I think it's probably low on my list of priorities because Nunes is still a bit punty, and Wilson's been in such good form. I'm not really worried that they're playing Chelsea.
Yeah. Now, plenty to think about. I'm pretty happy with my team at the current time. It feels like I sort of should make transfers because I've got 2 of them, and with the additional wild card coming up, it almost feels like I'm throwing them away. But I quite like my team as it stands.
Yeah, it's not a waste. If it was me and I wasn't making any actual changes, I would probably just have changed my keeper or something like that, just because like the chances of, like I say, Allison would be the one I'm looking at. Like I'd say Edison, but you've got 3 City players.
Yeah.
The chance of Allison getting a clean sheet are considerably higher than Sanchez this week. I've not looked at the funds, but if I'm sure you can downgrade SA. If you're not going to start him anyway, it doesn't matter. It's 4 1 week.
Yeah.
I probably would do that just for the sake of it, but it's such a small swing. I don't think there's anything wrong with not making changes. Like it's always worth doing if you genuinely think it improves your team. For what it's worth as well, I also think Foden will start this week. I think the fact he didn't even come off the bench seems to be a bit of an indicator, I think.
Yeah.
Don't know what the reason was that he's been benched for 3 consecutive weeks, but yeah, if I still owned him, I would be happy to still own him for this game week.
Agreed.
What about captaincy then? What are you looking at?
I mean, Haaland, his yellow ticket's gone. The risk has gone. I mean, last week was a risk because he came on late in the game. But scored, so justified the captaincy. But now hopefully he will start from the very beginning and be back to some sort of excellent scoring form. And Brentford have been pretty less than great over the last few weeks, I think.
Yeah, they're a bit up and down as a club. I think
might be right for the picking.
I don't think it's quite right that they've taken the yellow flag off, actually. I don't think he's 100%. I think he'll start. I don't think he'll start. But Pep suggested that he still wasn't 100% over his ankle injury. He was on the bench against Chelsea in the Carabao Cup, but there obviously wasn't a need to risk him because City were 2-0 up early on in the second half. So I don't think he was ever going to bring him on unless he was actually chasing the game.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think he'll start. But I do think there's a little doubt over it, and you do have Salah, obviously, who has a really nice fixture against Southampton, who have been conceding for fun recently, so much that they've sacked their manager. For me, like the only other option is Kev. I'm 95% sure I'll captain Haaland, but again, like there's. Man City keep being the first game, so
yeah.
Again, there's a chance I might get team news on that, and if I do, it's an earlier kickoff, so it's going to be harder for me to find that because I will actually be working.
Yeah, you'll be able to smuggle a look.
But if I do find out that Haaland's not starting, then it will be Kev, but otherwise it'll be on Haaland.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully Haaland doesn't become that sort of gambler's folly where I just stick with him all season as he goes through dry spells. But I mean, he came on for what, like 40 minutes last week?
Yeah,
even that, and scored a goal. So he's still doing the job.
Yeah, and had one
disallowed.
Well, so, yeah. I don't think he'll keep up. He's not keeping up the scoring rate all season, but. Am I going to captain in the first game week after the World Cup? Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
He's got himself a nice 6 weeks off now as well. So
yeah, I think he comes back like Ricky Hatton fat.
I think we should just get him a. I felt bad whoever I was going to pick to name them.
Yeah,
I was going to
Ricky
pick
Hatton's a big enough boy. I think he can.
No, I was going to pick an England player and say just give him a Marcus Rashford mask and he could just wear that. But I decided whoever I picked, I was going to feel slightly bad about it. So
yeah, it'd be a little cruel.
Well, that's it for our team selection video ahead of Game Week 16. If you enjoyed the video, then give it a like and consider subscribing to the channel. We really appreciate it when you guys do that. We'll have a bit of content for you over the World Cup. Not doing Fantasy World Cup or anything like that, so it'll be all Fantasy Premier League focused. Got a few ideas for a few fun little videos. So yeah, subscribe to the channel, hit the little notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of those. And we'll catch you on another video.